Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so I'm Dan Cunningham, I'm CTO of Chatmeter. Just a quick background on who Chatmeter is. Like she said, we have a very robust platform. We manage companies like A&W, KFC, Taco Bell, Tim Hortons, to all the way to smaller guys like Dickies and Halal guys. So we manage the reputations, listings, surveys, social, local pages for clients that have 10 locations or maybe 1,000 locations, and some of our larger customers like 7-Eleven, 15,000 or more. So what I want to talk about today is how AI has changed the way at least we view processing customer feedback data. And if you're like many of our customers, which you are, you probably have an enormous amount of this, right? Consumers are posting feedback data constantly across multiple channels every day, all the time. And making sense of that data has been a challenge up to now. And we're going to talk a little bit about how AI is changing that. So just to put stuff in context, I'm going to be talking about 3 types of feedback channels, right? The first type is surveys. This is the OG feedback channel, the original feedback channel, right? It's been around for a very long time. It's still highly in use, and it has a lot of benefits. For one thing, surveys are what we considered structured data, and I'll talk just briefly about structured and unstructured. But structured data means it's easily quantifiable, right? You can take the results. Most surveys are like NPS. You know, how would you rate the spicy chicken 1 through 10? Would you recommend us to a friend? That can be easily put into Excel. You can do a sum. You can tabulate it. You know, you can track it over time. And most of the time we see, especially customers coming from other platforms, is a lot of their surveys are 1 through 10 type of stuff, right? And they've been around for a while. When you get to a survey where it has, like, leave us general comments, that's what we considered unstructured data. And unstructured data just means you can't throw that in Excel. You can't sum that. You actually have to start pulling meaning out of that data, and that's much harder to do. The second channel, the largest channel for us, is reviews. Our customers get a lot of reviews, right? Customers are posting this all the time on their mobile devices, what they like, what they don't like. We process hundreds of thousands of these every day. And so, again, this is unstructured data. Customers are talking about whatever they like or dislike about your business, sometimes in immense detail with photos. And so there is a lot of valuable data in these if you know how to process and use that. And then the last one we have is social data. And it's a lot like reviews. It's unstructured. Customers are posting about your brand, your locations, you know, on Facebook. More increasingly, what we're seeing is customers posting images on Instagram and now videos on TikTok, right? And so these 3 channels have been somewhat overwhelming multi-location businesses with just how to process and make sense of all this. And so when we talk about structured data, so that's like surveys and things you can put in Excel, those over time have been growing pretty steadily. But this is a report to, this is an IDC, an analytics company, did this report. By next year, 80% of all the data that we process is going to be unstructured, right? And this is data coming from providers like Facebook and Google and Yelp and Instagram and Apple. And you know, we sit between our customers and maybe 30 or 40 of these digital platforms. So how do you start making sense of all of this unstructured data that can't be easily thrown in a database or into an Excel file? Just a caveat, all these reviews you're seeing are actual real food customers of ours. I've purposely picked ones that don't say the customer's name, and I've kind of, you know, anonymized them a little bit, but these are all from the last week or 2 off our platform. So obviously we've been doing this before, large language models and ChatGPT and, you know, Gemini and all that good stuff. So how did we used to process this before AI? Well, we would try to make sense of a review. So if we take this review, how would we break this down so you can report on it? Well, we would start breaking it down first by saying sentiment. Is this positive or negative? Not just the whole review. We actually break down sentence by sentence because a review can have lots of good nuggets of data in it. Usually they're talking about more than one thing. And so we break it down by sentiment, and then we start breaking it down by categories. Are they talking about customer service? Are they talking about food? And then we break it down even further into keywords or topics. If they're talking about food, are they talking about the burgers? Are they talking about the fries? If it's customer service, are they talking about my order on time or is it late? And then we just keep doing this. We repeat that for every sentence for the whole review. And so we have data scientists. They trained models to go do this, and we've been doing this for years. And that's great because all of a sudden, once you have a review broken up into this format, you can start doing all sorts of fun stuff with it, right? We've now taken it and turned it into something that you can report on. You know, we can do word clouds. Everybody loves word clouds. We can do interactive wheels where you can drill in on customer service and you can see what people like and they don't like and all that good stuff. And we give you actual numeric ratings and stuff that you can report on. And this is super useful, powerful technology. And it still is, even post-AI, it's still really, really, really important. But there's one more element in processing this, and that's called HITL. Does anybody know what that stands for? I just found out about this last week. Someone sent me a forestry report, and they used this acronym, and I thought, I'm totally stealing that. It stands for human in the loop. And so while we give you all the tools and all this great data and the ability to drill down and metrics for your business, at the end of the day, it still requires somebody to make sense of that data, right? It still requires somebody to say, well, what does it mean for my business? Well, what do I need to change in my business, right? And that's great because humans are really, really good at that. But there's some drawbacks to that. One is it's slow. So, we have customers who, they get weekly or monthly or even sometimes quarterly reports from vendors who take their data, they break it down, they create a big PowerPoint presentation, and every month they say, hey, this is how your business is doing. And that's great, but you have to wait a month or a quarter or 6 months to get that report. It's expensive. People are expensive. Really, really good people are really expensive. And it's static, right? You get all this data, you ingest it, you create this great report on what it means to your business, and then when someone says, well, what about if just this region? Or what about if we change this, what would the report say? Well, you have to go back and do the whole thing over again. And so what I want to talk about a little bit is that what changed for us about 1.5 years ago was that when you take artificial intelligence, so large language models, this is ChatGPT or Gemini, stuff that really came onto the scene about 1.5 years ago, and your customer feedback data, it's a match made in heaven. I mean, they are just perfect for each other. And the reason is, when we're talking about large language models and generative AI is what they call it, is that data matters, right? The type of data that you have AI really does matter. And the reason is because the OpenAIs of the world and the ChatGPTs and the Bards and the Geminis were trained on us. They were trained on human conversations, what we say to each other, and they're trained on a lot of them. In fact, if you've been reading in the news, you've heard that AIs are very, very hungry for data. Companies are borrowing, and stealing as much data as they can to feed these things so they grow ever, ever bigger. And this is just a list of stuff I threw together, which is where OpenAI and Google pull a lot of the data for these large language models. But some of the biggest parts of the data is how we talk, right? So they pull all of these millions of websites with blogs and Medium posts and articles from newspapers. They pull all the data out of Reddit, so how people are having conversations online, user forums, and more importantly, lots and lots of product reviews and location reviews. So these large language models have been trained with billions and billions and billions of samples of conversations that we have. And so I know a lot of people think of AI as like a productivity tool, and I use it all the time. I have a ChatGPT tab up on my browser, and I ask it questions, and it gives me responses, and it's super cool. It's also really good at generating marketing content, right? Like getting the creative juices flowing, helping you get going on ad copy. We're starting to use it for sales content, sales emails, that kind of stuff. pretty helpful. It's really good at generating this stuff. But where AI starts to get really interesting is when it starts being able to react in real time to customer data, to customer feedback. And so service agents are a really interesting thing where AI is starting to interact with your customers in real time. In fact, we have an AI responder for reviews. I hope everybody's responding to reviews. It's super important. We encourage our customers to respond to all their reviews. Some of our customers have such great volumes that they just can't respond to all their reviews all the time. And so when you have a combination of AI that can both detect reviews that need to be responded to and then generate responses to the ones that don't, it's pretty helpful. And in fact, AI is really good at responding to reviews, right? It sounds much better than a canned response. It can take it, it understands what the customer is saying, it understands who the brand and the business is, and it can respond in the brand's voice uniquely to every review. So it's pretty good there. Where it starts to get really interesting, though, is AI's ability to do summarization. So now we're starting to get into like, wow, I have all of this data. I just want to make sense of it. I want, our customers are telling us all the time that the tools are great, but sometimes I just want to know, what does it mean? Like, give me the answer. And so this is where we start seeing this really affect our industry, is its ability to make sense of the data. And then finally, once it starts doing that, if you focus an AI correctly, if you prompt it correctly, if you kind of lead it down a path correctly, it can start giving you really valuable analytics and insights, much like a human business analyst would. And so that's where we have started going down the path, and others in our industry and other industries have started going down. And where this becomes super helpful is not just taking stuff and throwing it into ChatGPT, that works, but processing all of that data early on into an AI before it enters your system. So for us at least, every of those 100,000 reviews and social posts and surveys, all of that data actually gets processed by an AI before it enters our system. And so we do things like classical things like, is it positive or negative? What categories and classifications should it be in? We do AI summarization. We look for analysts. We do an analysts and insights on it, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We look for business risks, or people talking about that, which I'll talk about. And then more importantly, we actually process the data and store it in a way that AI has immediate access to it later. So anytime you ask AI about your business, we don't have to refeed it all the stuff. It actually has direct access to it. And that's where stuff gets really, really exciting. So I'm just going to go over a couple of features that we've built on this that we're kind of excited about. And whether it's us or another vendor, these are all the exciting things that we think AI is going to really change the game on. And the first one is just, this is the tip of the iceberg. So the simplest thing is, how do you drive insights out of your data? And so when we start feeding AI all this data, it can easily go through and start understanding what's positive in your business, what's negative in your business. And you can do this in real time, right? So you don't have to do this across the brand. You could do this on a set of locations, on a region. I could do this in the Midwest, or maybe just the Chicago region, or maybe just Lombard. And so AI not only goes through and figures out all of this, but it can actually generate very detailed insights about exactly what your customers are talking about, even identifying different categories of like quality or service that need to be addressed. And so starting to get this bird eye view of all of your data, all of your locations, what's going on, can be really, really helpful. What starts to get more interesting is when we start looking at this as a risk tool. And so risk is something we're really excited about. There's a statistic that 7 in 10 unhappy customers proactively reach out to a business, right? Or to a brand. And these days, they're not pulling aside a manager, they're whipping out their phone, and they're basically posting a review on Google or Yelp, or you name the site. And usually the review is quite detailed when they're unhappy, a lot of content. And we're increasingly seeing also more images posted with those, right? And so, again, this is kind of a double-edged sword. You're getting super valuable feedback in real time about how your locations are performing. And when you have a lot of them, this is really great for corporate to understand The bad side, of course, is that they're sharing this publicly and everybody else is reading it as well. And so this is where responding to reviews and making sure you're addressing people's issues are super important, as like 90% of people will actually change their review if you would actually address it in the as a response. And so if we can start looking at risk, and again, these are pulled from our real customers, we can start finding stuff like mold in a location, right? So these are all about a week or two old from some of our customers. Food safety issues, so undercooked food, food that maybe had bacteria, food that's expired are common ones that we see a lot. Facility and operation issues. This was one that we detected on an image where a customer was complaining about a nail sticking out of the patio, which is a definite risk for the business. And then, of course, the most popular one is the bathroom shot. We have lots of those, lots of dirty bathroom shots. And so if we can have AI start detecting this risk, we can actually have it start doing really interesting things. So we can say, hey, is this review or social post or something in a survey, do they mention risk? And if it is risky, what category of risk it is, right? Once we know risk, we can start classifying the risk. So we say, hey, is it risky? What category of risk is it, right? And then, like, what's the severity of that risk? And so this is tailored to the food industry. We can do this across different verticals, but once you start saying, well, wow, I have food safety risks, or I have employee safety risks. We had one customer that for business practices, they found out using this tool that they had a couple locations that had credit card skimmers. And so they had employees that were actually stealing credit card numbers in a region in Southern California. And so this allowed them to detect that, went up to the VP of operations, and they were able to fix that for their franchise locations, which, it's a little sometimes hard to control quality. And so where this gets really powerful is when this is hooked up to like a workflow engine. So we have customers that have rules set up so that like when they get a food safety issue, it goes up to corporate. Corporate has ability to take a look at it. It also gets sent to a general manager of a region and sometimes the store manager. In fact, we have some customers that actually comp the monthly bonus on their employees based on their ability to respond and remediate reviews, right? So they're actually getting their full bonus if the store manager responds to 100% of that location's reviews. So it helps to make sure we ensure quality and we're taking care of customer service. And at the end of the day, this is also to stop viral moments before they happen, right? If we can detect food safety issues like people are complaining about getting sick, maybe there's an E. coli breakout in a region of the country, you can detect that very, very early on and prevent further people from getting sick and possibly a really big viral PR problem on your hands. And we've seen that a number of times with customers in this industry. The next one I want to talk about, which is kind of fun, we have a product name for this, but I'm just going to call this for this group virtual focus groups. So normally, at least historically, when you want to get more information about maybe a product, maybe you're rolling out a new recipe, like we have customers that we had one customer that changed the oil they used in their fry recipe, and they wanted to get feedback on that. Maybe you're changing, putting a new fry out on the menu. Typically, historically, you would create a survey, and you'd say, like for Tito's here, what do you think of the new spicy chicken? And you would send this out and try to get feedback on the change that you made. And that's useful and it's helpful. And I don't want to knock surveys. We do a lot of surveys. We have a robust platform. And they're really good because you can target them. Maybe they're hooked up to your POS system. Maybe you're just sending them out in a few stores. You can ask very specific questions. And again, it's quantitative, so you can get kind of data that you can put in an Excel spreadsheet and tabulate really quickly. But there are some drawbacks to it, right? Surveys have a pretty low response rate. They just do, right? You're trying to pull data out of people. People aren't proactively leaving you feedback. They're time consuming. Even platforms like us where we have WYSIWYGs and drags and drops, you have to create a survey, you have to maybe test it, you have to then send it out, and then finally you have to wait for the responses, right? So you've already put your new spicy chicken out in the market, but you're going to be waiting weeks or longer to get the data back. But it's very possible your customers have already told you what they think, right? They've been, like I said, a lot of times it's, I love it, I love it, I love it, a million of those. Sometimes it's, they don't like it, and they leave way more detailed reviews. And so you've already got the data. How do you start using that to basically ask questions? And this is where AI gets really interesting, is that when AI has direct access to all that data, you don't need to go send out a survey. You can just ask it, what do you think of, what do customers think of my new recipe? It will go through all of the reviews, all the social posts, any of the surveys, and it will come back and it will tell you this is what they like, this is what they don't like. You might say, well, why is my locations in California doing better than New York? It will go all through the data, pull all the locations, compare them, and it can give you an analysis of what customers like better in one region of the country and another. You can do this store by store, region by region, at a brand or national level. It's super valuable. And then it gives you not only a response, it gives you all the attributing data, so you can see all of the reviews, pull reports, and provide useful information. So it gives you an analysis like a business analyst would. Last thing I'll just mention is something that we're really excited about, which is competitive analysis, right? Is if we can use AI to look at your business and your reviews and your social posts and give you all of this detailed information like a team of business analysts would, if we can do the same thing with your competitors, we can pull public information that we have off of providers from them, how can we start using AI to compare your business in real time to your competitor's business, right? And many companies offer this type of service, but it's usually like a 6-month process. They interview people, you get a report. It's very, very expensive. But with AI, we can do this in real time, right? We can compare your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to your 5 biggest competitors, right? We can do it at a brand level. We can do it at a region level. We can do it at a per location level. We can do it over the last 3 months. We can do it over 6 months. And it doesn't take months. It takes seconds, right? You just change a filter, click OK, AI reprocesses everything, and you get a new report. And so all of a sudden, from risk detection to virtual focus groups to competitive analysis, AI is really, really, really changing the game for us. And these are not hypotheticals or what else. These are real things that are going out in the market, and you'll start seeing this across other industries as well. So just kind of wrapping stuff up, the benefits of AI, the biggest one is the just-in-time feedback, right? Not having to wait days or weeks or months for people to make sense of your data. Meaningful risk detection. Before we could detect keywords like did someone say sick or did someone use the word knife or something like that. But with AI, we can actually get meaningful risk detection. It understands the semantic meaning behind what people are saying. Shorter feedback loops. So you've got a new question, AI can answer it. Maximize your existing data. We're swimming in so much data, we don't really need to go get more data. You should utilize the data that you already have, right? And so that was a big push into this. And then finally, we can't eliminate people. That's not our job. AI is not going to do that anytime soon with this type of stuff. But what we can do is we can reduce the investment that we need in those kind of big groups to analyze the data. We can make it easier for businesses to maybe do this internally, or maybe they don't need an external provider, right? And our team gets in the trenches with our customers. We act like consultants. We help them make sense of the data. But at the end of the day, we're trying to build technology that's reducing the need for that so that customers can make sense and understand the data themselves. And that's it. So thank you very much.